if I'd known how long it was going to take and I'd known what I was going to lose in terms of, resources, in terms of relationships, in terms of personal comfort, in terms of ego gratification, in terms of reputation in some circles, if I'd known all it would cost, I wouldn't have started.
In episode 3, we'd sit down with Lester Crafton and talk about the habit of questioning the habits that you hold. Welcome everybody to Habit Hackers Rebel Radio episode 3. In this episode, we sit down with Lester Crafton. Now, Lester is a co-founder of an organization called Ovonova. Now, Ovonova are a solar energy company with a sole mission of educating the world about solar energy and helping the community while they do that, allowing communities to gain funds and to gain money for just hearing about solar energy, a brand new approach to what is an industry that has existed for a while, with the biggest challenge of solar energy being understanding and the obscurity of solar energy. Like any new energy, this is a new approach, an exciting business. Now, what this episode is really about is Lester and his journey to that point. Lester built a very large, successful sales organization for 20 years. So 20 years of his career was spent doing the one thing and developing skills and developing an organization and developing a business. After 20 years, Lester began the new habit of questioning the habits that he had, is wondering, how did I get here? Do I want to be here? Does this do for me? Does this do for the people around me what it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And when he started to ask those questions, he realized the answer was no. From that, Lester made some changes in his career to a completely different direction and a completely different energy and motivation to the new career. Over the next half an hour, we'll explore that, the motivations of asking those questions, and what it can do for you when you do. From listening to other podcasts and from videos I've seen of yours and comments and all the stuff you put out, is it seems like right now you're in this big transitional period, and whether you'd call that 12 months or maybe you'd say 40 years, but it seems like now you've had a real shift in your life. And I was curious if you consider that, if you think of it like that, do you think of it like an up and down, or do you think of it as a constant just growth, and really leaving it open to how you would tell your story and how you believe you got to where you are now and where it leads you?
Thanks for asking. You asked really good questions. First of all, I am, from working with the people I've worked with and the way that I saw people for so long, I'm very well aware from an outside looking in, without really understanding what I've gone through and what I believe, that the majority of the world would interpret my situation as like a rise and fall and probably careless mistakes and actions and not wanting to be responsible and refusing to do what, I can see that story. So I have the self-awareness to recognize that, that's probably how most people interpret it. So I'll start there so that perhaps I seem less crazy when I say what I'm about to say. And it's very difficult to say this without seeming incredibly narcissistic, but I believe that it's a hero's journey. And I think that we're all on a hero's journey. I think that there's this thing that we quest for as the hero, and then we achieve it. And it's like, what the hell? And then we continue to go, and then we achieve. And then one day we're at the highest part of the mountain we can imagine. And we look around and say, what the hell is it all for?
You spent 20 years in one career, which seems, well, from the outside, seems different, or a different path from the path you're on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would look like that. But I would say, if you'd like to hear the series of weird, nuanced choices that were made, I can give you a story of about 5 or 6 different things that show, oh, that's how you came to exactly where you are now. That makes sense, but they're so philosophical, even though they're very literal. Like, this led to this choice, which led to becoming aware of this, which led to this choice, which led to this choice, which created where I am now. To me, it's a perfectly logical journey that seems magical, where all these things happened exactly when they were supposed to, and the right people came when they were supposed to. And I built a large sales organization before actually dealing with the fact that, whenever I was a kid, I went through some sexual abuse with some older friends in my neighborhood. And what I learned through that experience, without realizing that I learned it, was I have to say yes to you in order for you to be my friend, even if it hurts me. So I was pretty well set up to be a yes man and say yes to everybody to be liked, because that's or else I was going to lose all my friends. It was a survival situation. Like, in order to not be an outcast in the world, I had to learn to not say no, even if it was against my best interest. But by becoming aware of it, I can talk to you about it with no emotion today, because it's, I did some wonderful therapy called EMDR. If any of you guys have ever been through any type of trauma, I would recommend it. It's the best type of therapy for trauma I've experienced. At EMDR, movement desensitization reprocessing. And then you start to see, holy shit, this is everywhere. There's a lot of people who have been through, if not this, then, living with an explosive parent, living with an overbearing parent. Like, when that compassion opens up and you have to and I had to take responsibility for my actions. Like, oh, you don't trust me because from day one, I've talked to you about how to get people to do what you want them to do. So why wouldn't you think that that's what I'm doing to you all the time? It's just trying to get you to do something I want you to do. Man, that's not what I was going for here. But I have to acknowledge that, okay, yeah, I can see where that comes from. And then when you realize there's something that you have to do and that there's no cost too great to do it, it takes a while to battle through that. One, am I completely delusional? And then you just go back to the numbers and you keep looking and looking and looking. You're like, no, this really makes sense. And then it's like, well, why me? Why did I deserve to have such a beautiful thing to share with the world? And then you're like, can go back and say, well, of course I do, because I met these people and worked this hard and led people with a good heart, and try to make yourself worthy somehow, instead of realizing we're all worthy. But what we have to let go of is what we think we want, so that we can figure out what we were called to do. And then ultimately it just comes down to the question, how do I add as much value as possible to as many lives as possible? And the one thing that I see that impacts everybody's ability to connect, that's energy. And that's why I'm working there. It's the same path I was on forever.
Like, it sounds like what's happened for you is it's gone from people that look and sound like, or live within your career world, and now it's extended to the human race and maybe the world itself. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, have you heard? That's exactly right. Somebody asked me a really good question last night. My old buddy Patrick said, who's your we? Who's your we now? I hadn't seen him in like a decade. He's like, who's your we? I'm like, wow, man, that's a really rad question. Like, who? If my answer was, well, these are the people. If you were asking my we in the sense of who are my buddies, this is who I'm hanging out with. But in terms of what I view as we, it's all of this. It's the whole thing. And this sounds really like a California stoner thing to say, but to me, it's a very logical thing to say, is that I'm made up of proteins, which are made up of molecules, which are made of atoms, which are made of protons and electrons, which are made of quarks and neutrinos and leptinos and all these different subatomic particles. And when you get all the way down to it, there's not much actually there. It's like 99.9% nothing, and then 1% something. And if you look far enough down at the something becomes a wave. It's a particle and a wave, but until it's observed, it's a wave. So essentially, so are you. You're nothingness and waves. And between us right now is a bunch of nothingness and waves. So really, this whole thing, if you stop thinking about a me that ends at the skin, and you start thinking about what you are, like your nothingness and waves, we're just vibrations, which is why I believe in silly quotes like your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
The lower levels you're vibrating, thinking about what you can get out of people and how people have been mean to you and what you're trying to prove, and that I'm different and excluded from the humans, then the harder it is to find people who are willing to help you, because they're looking for the same thing, trying to get stuff out of people. But when you jump up and you really start trying to be of service, like I did, so 18 knocking on doors and including those people, then 19 having a little team and teaching them essentially to be more inclusive of people.
That idea of spreading the we, spreading your circle or extending your circle, either comes from exposure to a lot of different types of people,
and I had that,
or it comes from hardship.
And I had that.
Yeah.
So it's both. I get and. You know, the exposure to a lot of people is dead on. That's a really great observation. Our biggest hardship was not having a bunch of money growing up and having fights about it in the family. My dad didn't beat my mom, or me and my sister other than getting whipped sometimes. My mom's kind. Who am I to complain about hardship? You know, I had great friends and a million people who were willing to run through walls in this pursuit, you know, with me doing things in my life. That's a wonderful experience to have had. You know, but after doing all that, I just had enough time to observe enough human behavior and to watch enough hardship that I was helping create for people by what I was giving them a chance to do, you know? Like, so I've seen enough of it to be like, what the hell are we all doing? Like, what is really going on? Like, what game are we playing? And what I finally came to is like, we're willing to play a game where we're willing to trade part of our lives doing things we don't want to do, where we don't want to do them, when we don't want to do them, you know, with people we don't necessarily want to do them with for money. And when we're talking about habits and habit hacking, if there's any habit that I've formed is asking, why do I do that? And just like, and then getting really positive about things in the last couple of years and asking, what would I love to do? Not what can I do that will cause me to be accepted, not what can I do that will allow me to do what I think that I want to do, but what would I love to do? And when you start asking yourself, what would I love to do, then all the what should I do things you start to realize are just things other people told you. And should just hurts the soul. Should. In order to what? Like, what person in the world has listened to somebody well enough to realize what they really, really want to do in order to have the authority to say, you should do this? I don't even say people should go solar. I just say that if the world went solar, there'd be a whole lot of people who didn't have to go to work every day to make energy for us, and they'd probably figure out some really cool things to do. If I'd known how long it was going to take, and I'd known what I was going to lose in terms of, you know, resources, in terms of relationships, in terms of personal comfort, in terms of ego gratification, in terms of reputation in some circles, if I'd known all it would cost, I wouldn't have started. I don't think. I'd like to think that I would have been courageous enough to start, but if I'd seen it all at the same time and then been like, this is, sure, brother, you get a chance to be up to plate to potentially change the world in like a legitimate, logical way, not some fanciful mission statement way. Yeah. And, but you have to go through this. I don't know if I would have done it. It's been going through hell. Where I am now, there's nothing that I'm not willing to lose to pursue this mission. Will it shape and will it morph? Will it look different in 2 years? I hope so, because the only thing that's constant is change.
Would you walk away now if you knew the future was negative, or would you just keep going because it's so you either have such a passion for it now, or you've gone too far now to quit?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't, just from my background, I don't know if I would ever actually know if I've gone too far to quit, because I just don't quit. It's not part of my my makeup until my heart just says it has to be done. But to answer your question, what I'm hearing you say, if I had the same news right now, like, you, buddy, you're going to end up homeless and naked, and like, you're going to end up whatever. The answer is, I believe that I had to lose the things I lost to gain the compassion that I needed for people that I used to be very judgmental towards. And to be able to start to see and to include those people into the humans list instead of the objects that take up space list. Yeah. And so to see something really big, it has to include all the people, or the more people you can include in terms of who this is going to benefit. So if there's more that I need to learn by losing more things, then I'd be willing to do that. But speaking from a place of vulnerability, you know, there's that fine line between, am I just fucking crazy? Am I a delusional narcissist sociopath who really thinks he can have a bigger impact than he can? Or am I somebody that's met 50,000 people and have learned a lot of things and have a really good heart towards humans and got lucky enough to figure some things out by doing some things he'd never done in his life before for a few years, and just like learning a whole different way of being? And the answer is probably somewhere in between. But the point is that right now I feel that I found my mission in life, like a life mission. And it's because of losing that stuff and gaining compassion for those people, I came to see what a truly transformative field I was lucky enough to find myself in, and how blessed being solar energy. We could talk about it all day. When you think it all the way through, you're like, oh, wow, that's wild. Whenever the biggest thing holding back this massive process is just ineffective communication between humans due to a lack of trust.
Yeah.
Did I spend my life teaching people how to deal with ineffective communication between humans when there's not trust present, and how to develop trust? So it's just putting all those lessons together and then putting in the format of technology. Churchill has this quote. It says, I'm going to paraphrase it. It says something to the effect of, the further you can, how far you can look back usually determines how far you can see ahead. If you look back, can you imagine that we're cavemen hanging out, eating some tiny bit of food underneath a tree when it's raining, and one of the cavemen said, man, I wish I could take a rock and push some buttons and then have deliciously microbe-free food that will nourish my body, and then it's just going to show up, and it's going to be like, his buddy would have said, shut the fuck up, you crazy idiot. Like, go shut up, let's go back. We got to get back to hunting now. Because when you're out searching for energy, but the crazy guy's version, that rock is your iPhone, and it's delivery.com or Uber Eats. Like, that's real now. Like, it's just, how long does it take? And the weird thing is, in a world as disconnected as cavemen, it took a long time to build up enough food, to build up enough people, to build up enough ideas, to create enough free time, to let enough crazy people think about what it could be, to create some stories for people to believe that we can live into, to create what we've created now. I don't know. I just get really excited thinking about humans, man. We do some wonderful things. Like, I don't have any idea how most of the stuff in this magical world works. But the toughest part of the hero's journey is when you realize you have this responsibility and come to grips with, why not me? If not me, who? If not us, who? If not now, when? Why wouldn't I do this if the opportunity is there? This is what I taught people to do for 20 years. It's not be afraid to go for something when they see that the opportunity is there, and to not make it mean anything about themselves if they failed. What kind of hypocrite would I be if I saw what was possible and then didn't actually do it myself, even if very few people understand it or understand the way that I've gone about doing? And it's just a long way of saying, although it seems abstract, it's almost autistically logical. And what's the opposite of abstract? Concrete. Like, it's it's just this very concrete way that I am attempting to go about at this point, with the knowledge and skills and people and lessons and heart and all those things, of adding value to the world by making it a little bit easier for us to all connect, by having you not have to go to work to pay people to go to work for all your computers and your machines and ultimately cars to work. And so I saw an industry that made so much sense, having watched people's habits keep them from being curious about things for a very long time, and just put things in their box and believe they're right even when they're very wrong. So I could understand why people hadn't caught on to this yet. I'm not judgmental towards people who don't know about things. They just don't know about things. And we're all busy doing the things that we need to do. And I thought, wow, I'm good at helping people see invisible habits. But I can't do this alone. And I know that I'll never be able to recruit enough people to be able to do it. If we're going to do it by going out, knocking on doors, or calling people on the phone individually, trying to make initial contact, I'm like, we need help from the communities. Like, right now in the places, Craig, where we are, and so this all comes back to the service question in Ovonova, like the states where we operate, California, Washington, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, those are the places where people are losing the most today by not using solar to power their homes. Like, they're actually losing money. And so the organizations we work with, like, if you had friends who were losing money who didn't have to be losing money, wouldn't it make sense to give them a chance to hear about something that could save them money? Of course it would. And especially if what you were giving them a chance to hear about was also good for everybody on earth, and could move towards the little piece of working towards creating what a lot of people believe to be an impossible utopia, but ultimately is the only thing worth actually working towards if you're looking at long-term value. Like, what makes it so people can do whatever we want to do without having to do anything we don't. And so we work with organizations, and when those organizations invite their supporters to find out what they could save by using solar, basically receive a proposal, find out what going solar looks like for them, take a phone call, receive a free proposal, free quote, just to find out what it would take to go solar. And just for finding out, we can give $100 to the organization. Nobody has to buy. A lot of times what happens, though, is that when somebody finds out that they could be saving thousands of dollars, and they never would have found out without the incentive to support their organization. But when they find out, holy cow, I could be doing something really good for the world and saving myself money today, not in some solar is expensive long-term ROI. Yeah, it's a good thing, but it's really expensive. And that's sort of the collective meme about solar energy right now. Yeah, it kind of works, but it doesn't work that well, and it's really expensive, and it's for rich people and environmentalists. Instead of, holy cow, we can power our lives with sunlight, and that's possible now. And the faster the message gets out, the more it will become accessible in all areas. And what we recognize is the technology itself is only about 30% of the cost of going solar. The other 70% is the installation, the marketing. The marketing's a huge chunk of it, and so we knew it needed to be a widely distributed way to spread solar. It couldn't be vertically integrated, we didn't feel. It's not something you control because the sun's not something you control. So it inherently involves a new way of seeing things. Like, how do you represent something that gives and gives and gives and gives and gives? Well, why not give and give and give instead of figuring out how much can we get, how much can we take? It's like, what's the most we can give away and still remain a viable business model? Because to operate in the world that we live in now, you have to make money to continue to ability to move people and things and ideas around.
Do you wish the last 40 years were any different, or are you happy with how everything's played out thus far? And if you could go back to when you were 20 and started this process of really most people would say in their teen years is when they start trying to figure out how they fit into the world, maybe earlier. Mm-hmm. But if you were going to go back to that time, would you tell yourself anything different? Would you point yourself in a certain direction, or would you let yourself run in the way that you have?
There are an overwhelming number of things that if I faced the exact same scenario today, I would respond differently than I did at the time. But there are 0 things that I did that I regret that I did because of I might have changed some lesson that put me in a different place than I'm in now. And I'm incredibly grateful. I say the same prayer every day. Thank you for my life. Please give me the wisdom to see your path and the courage to take it. And what I've come to believe is that what wisdom means is operating from a place of safety, like realizing I'm safe. There's nothing I have to do or prove or get in order to be enough. So that presents no moral situation for me that I'd be willing to take and hurt in order for myself. And so then you start looking at how your actions have that impact. So wisdom is I'm safe, and I will be until I'm dead, even if it seems like I'm not safe. Ultimately, until I'm dead, and then when I'm dead, it doesn't matter anymore. So I don't respond with this anger and aggression if I know that I'm safe, and I can be enough space when somebody does show up like that, they can unravel. And I was, oh, okay, cool. So that's the first thing. And then courage is just the courage to love. No matter how many times you've been hurt, no matter how many times people have told you enough, to continue to believe that we're capable, and that applies to everyone, that we're all moving forward and doing the best that we can to create the best world that we can imagine, that nobody's bad for doing it the way they're doing it. It might be creating issues that they're not aware of and don't feel connected to, that they don't yet understand, but that doesn't make them bad people. We're all just doing the best that we can while being hampered by the programming of the big people who taught us that life was scary, bad, hard, and you couldn't trust strangers and, hide things about ourselves in order to be accepted. So that's not our fault. We're all doing the best we can.
Cool. Well, just to finish it up, best of luck with Ovonova.
Thank you, brother.
If somebody is watching this later on and wanted to learn more about it, how would they do that? Where would they go?
Ovonova.co.
Yeah.
And not .com. Ovonova.co is a website. If somebody knows me personally, you can send me a Facebook message or a text or a LinkedIn message or whatever. That's my favorite thing to talk about in the world right now. So be more than glad to do anything I can to help spread the word. And I appreciate you having me on. I can talk about this stuff and all kinds of stuff all day long. Like if you want to talk about practical habits and all the things that people normally think of as habits, be more than welcome to do that. But the type of habits that I really think are important now are the habits of thinking about what you're thinking and why you're thinking it, like metacognition habits. Like, why am I doing that? And what impact is it having around me? And is it aligned with adding as much value as possible, as many lives as possible, which is Ovonova's mission. It's what we're really doing. We're just doing it by making energy and connection a little bit more accessible to everybody.
No, I agree. If what we did in the last hour or so was to share the practical habits because we thought that's what people wanted to hear, that would be missing the point completely, because people would always think they're right in the way that they think. So by listening to someone like yourself who goes, I know you think you should be focusing on this kind of thing, this is what I focus on, have a look at this. I think that opens people up to something new, and that's the whole point of this.
As someone who spent a very long time focusing on what they're focusing on, so I understand. I really can. I have deep empathy for the dirtiest, unwashed hippie and the most badass $100,000 suit wearing guy on Wall Street. We're all just doing what we think we're supposed to be doing because there really are no rules. It's kind of fun. Like when you realize that it's like we're doing what we think we should so that we can sometimes do what we love. Instead of figuring out how can we create a world where we can all do what we love, which is pretty possible now with all the awesome things we've created.
If you're listening to this point, thank you. I appreciate you taking the 30, 40 minutes out of your schedule, out of your day to listen in and hopefully grow. If you enjoyed it, please get involved in the Habit Hackers private Facebook group. This is a group of entrepreneurs and people looking to grow and learn the right habits, and a great community in which to share your thoughts, hear others, and learn and grow. We also have habithackerplanner.com. We have a new planner out, launching in the beginning of 2018. This is a planner that, unlike other planners, allows you to form the habits that are going to cultivate success in your life. It helps you cultivate gratitude, goal setting, time management, personal management within time, and so much more than that. Ovonova Radio.